He seems like he's going to fail. It's been clear from the start that Stephen A. Smith doesn't like Shedeur Sanders' work, but now he's going even further by telling everyone about Shedeur's money problems. It's not a surprise either. He lost his starting spot and fell in the draft, which were both bad things for his future. Stephen A. says it's possible that his spending is even worse. Let's break it down. The first question that comes to mind is one that has been bothering everyone for months. How does a college quarterback get a collection of cars worth more than $1 million? The 23-year-old quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, went from the Colorado Buffaloes to the Cleveland Browns as a fifth-round draft pick in 2025. He has a large collection of expensive cars that were mostly bought with his name, image, and likeness. He didn't get any deals while he was in college. That seems like a good idea at first glance, right? It's true that NIL deals exist and the best college players can make a lot of money from them, but now things start to get interesting. And where Stephen Smith's natural desire to look into things began to take over, he made deals worth an estimated $6.5 million with companies like Nike, Gatorade, Beats by Dre, Google, 5430 Alliance, and Mercedes-Benz, which helped him build a collection worth more than $1 million. Let's take this supposed financial empire apart piece by piece, since the devil is in the details and Stephen Smith has been looking into them in great depth. His sales of jerseys alone brought in $14 million in profits from $250 million in sales, which added to his wealth. But wait a minute. It seems like something doesn't quite add up when you look at these numbers with a clean slate. In the world of sports goods, commission rates are usually between 5 and 15%. Even at the top end of that range, we're talking about a lot of money, but maybe not the kind that can support the completely crazy lifestyle we've been seeing play out in real time. The dates of the orders should be enough to send up red flags for anyone who is paying attention. This is about a young man who bought expensive things that would make professional players green with envy, even though he was said to be living off of college NIL deals. Stephen Smith is one of the few people in the sports media who isn't afraid to talk about whether or not this math makes sense when you look deeper. We should talk about the most valuable thing in his collection. One of his most famous cars is the custom-made Rolls-Royce Cullinan with a black and gold wrap that looks like a Colorado bull. During college, through Neil earnings that are worth about $350,000. Purchase of this car is not like any other. You can tell everyone within 5 miles that I made this piece by the way it looks. However, this is what interested Stephen Smith and made his mind start working extra hard on analysis. Shedeur bought this car while he was still in college. It is said that all of the money came from those NIL deals that appeared out of... But that's not the end of the car show, folks. Don't worry, this crazy ride is just beginning. By living in too much comfort, the high-performance SUV Lamborghini Urus was bought around January 2024. In February 2024, it was shown on Instagram with new upgrades that made it look even better. It is thought to be worth $240, $250. Then there are the Mercedes-Maybach GLS 600, which are high-end SUVs worth $200,000 each. Shedeur has 3 of them and will give one to Jordan Seaton in December 2024. Don't forget about the Tesla Cybertruck either. Bought in April 2024 and said to be the first Cyber Beast type in Colorado, it is worth about $80 and $110,000 to the owner. The last car in the group is a $90,000 Dodge Durango SRT Hellcat. A Chevrolet Corvette Stingray worth $60,000 was sold for $95,000. $70,000 in a Mercedes EQB electric SUV that is worth about $55,000. Let's quickly do some math since numbers are reliable. Even when people are lying or making up elaborate financial lies, this collection of cars is worth a lot more than $1.5 million. And that's just a rough estimate. It doesn't take into account the costs of custom work, taxes, insurance, and regular maintenance for a college student from NIL deals in a sport where even the biggest names have trouble getting 8-figure NIL packages all the time. When Stephen Smith started to look into what was going on, he wasn't just looking at the cars. Not at all. His detective radar was picking up on something much more important and possibly harmful. Shedeur has been showing off his golden watch collection on social media in a way that makes it look like he's trying to blind satellites in space. Sanders' love of high-end watches and chains goes back to his early college years when he started buying custom pieces, even though he came from a poor background at an HBCU. The story starts to fall apart at the is point, which is where things get really interesting. The Royal Oak 15 from Audemar's Piguet, 500, which is his most famous piece, is a stainless steel model that was totally customized with over 30 carats of VVS Clarity diamond worth about $70,000 that he bought while he was still at Jackson State University in 2022. It keeps getting more expensive and iffy from there. The Audemars Piguet Royal Oak skeleton watch that was worn to the 2024 Heisman Trophy ceremony is worth $295,000. Then there are Richard Mille watches. Post-draft reports say that he showed off a $265,000 model on Instagram, and another story says that he showed off a $300,000 model. But this is where Stephen Smith's work as a financial spy really pays off and shows where this carefully put-together front is falling apart. Anyone who knows how money works in the real world can see that the time of these purchases, the amount of money being spent, and the sources of income don't make any sense. When you're still in college and spend almost $400,000 on watches, someone needs to ask why. Stephen Smith has been doing just that. When you think about the harsh financial truth that hit you after the draft, those questions become even more important and necessary. His $840,000 rookie salary and $447,000 signing bonus as a fifth-round pick make his spending before the NFL look very different and worrisome. This guy spent more on accessories than he would have made in his first year in the NFL, and he wasn't even chosen yet. That's not planning your money, that's making up money stories. Stephen Smith has made a lot of noise about how he thinks Shedeur's living raises a lot of financial red flags. The longtime ESPN expert, who is known for paying close attention to details and not being afraid to point out problems when he sees them, has been raising serious concerns about whether or not this very expensive way of life is realistic and sustainable. And you know there's more to the story than meets the eye when Stephen Smith starts to ask you about your money. The 2025 NFL Draft Party scandal, in which Sanders threw a fancy party at Dallas's hide-and-seek bar after the draft that included a Louis Vuitton chest with $1 million in cash, may have been the most telling event. Showing off $1 million in cash at a party is amazing and makes for great social media content, but money experts know that displays of cash are often more about how people see you and how you want to be seen than about real wealth or smart money management. How this high-class living has been paid for and kept up over time is both interesting and scary. Sanders' collection shows his mix of performance, luxury, and sustainability, which is often linked to his personal brand and family's impact. But the main question still stands: is this long-term wealth based on solid finances, or is it carefully planned financial theater meant to make it look like they are successful? Early on, there were signs that something was wrong, and some NFL veterans tried to sound the alarm. As of September 2023, NFL great Tom Brady told Sanders on his Let's Go podcast that studying films should come before buying expensive things. I have one question for you, Tom. Do you think a college student needs a rose-colored ghost? Okay, it's not a ghost. It's a Rolls-Royce tube. I believe he should leave. Brady's comments were not only about responsibilities on the field. They were about being responsible with money and focusing on a long-term job path, which shows that you know how to build lasting wealth. Sanders had even more telling and embarrassing problems with his cars while he was at Colorado. For example, he broke parking rules several times, and on November 9, 2023, his Rolls-Royce Cullinan was booted and had its wheels clamped for tickets not paid for. Having the money to buy a $350,000 car, but not being able to pay your parking tickets, makes me wonder how well you handle your cash flow and whether your finances are as solid as they seem. At this point, Stephen Smith's warnings change from questioning Shedeur's spending habits to showing how his looks and way of life may have hurt his job and wealth. When Shedeur Sanders was picked in the NFL draft, things went horribly wrong. This should have been his big break into the NFL and a lifelong source of financial security. Shedeur Sanders was one of the most talked-about prospects going into the 2025 NFL Draft. He was generally expected to be picked in the top 5, and ESPN's Mel Kiper Jr. even called him the second-best quarterback available and predicted a top 5 pick. The top 5 picks in the NFL Draft usually get signing bonuses between $25 million and $40 million, and their starting contracts are worth a total of $50 million, $70 million over 4 years. But then draft day came around and everything went wrong in the most spectacular and financially disastrous way you can imagine. In an amazing turn of events, Sanders dropped so much that the Cleveland Browns got him 144th overall in the 5th round. Let me help you understand this in terms of money. It wasn't just a slide down the draft board. This financial collapse could have cost Shedeur tens of millions of dollars and completely changed his financial situation. Stephen Smith was one of the first major news outlets to understand the huge effects of this draft disaster and what it meant for someone who was living like a millionaire before they actually got millionaire money. The numbers tell a heartbreaking story of missed money-making chances. Sanders could have lost more than $40 million this fall if he had placed in the top 5. Sanders took a $4.6 million rookie deal with the Browns instead of a huge signing bonus and guaranteed money that would set him up for life. That's only about a tenth of what he could have gotten as a top 5 pick. That difference isn't just important when you have the financial responsibilities we've seen so far. It could have terrible results. But this is where Stephen Smith's reasoning really shines and gets to the heart of the matter. He began to ask the tough questions about what caused this sudden drop, and if Shedeur's way of life and attitude directly hurt his chances of making money in the future. Several unnamed sources